All right, welcome back. Silver and Black today here, an Odyssey original podcast. Moton, Gulbransen with you. We are your hosts. We are your guides through Raider Nation, the tour of Raider Nation, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in Indonesia, whether you're in China. Wait a minute. I don't think they can get us in China, but everywhere else they can get us. Shout out to Raider Nation all over the world, including Diego Garcia. Do you know where that is, Mo? Diego Garcia. No answer. Okay, so... I met a guy in London when Chaz and I went and did the show. We did the show for CBS Radio, Raiders versus Bears in London. We met a Raider fan from Diego Garcia. There's an Air Force base there, but it's like in the Indian Ocean. It's like a tiny island. And this guy came up to see the Raiders. That's how crazy in love you all are with Raider football. And it's great. It's why you're the best fans there are in the NFL. All right, Mo, before we get to the defensive backs, just a quick thing. Marquette King, I don't understand how people don't like the guy. Now, we're covering him objectively. We like to talk to these guys. He just told us more about his end of Raider story than I think has ever been revealed, by the way, which I'm proud. And that's why we wanted to have him on to talk about it. But he's just a likable dude. I don't understand how people don't like him, probably because they don't know him.
Yeah, we had him for about 20 minutes. I had him for about 5 minutes before you came and joined us. And likable dude. I got the vibe that I just want to chill out with him at the pool, on a nice weekend, because he's very easy to talk to, very approachable dude. So for him, I hope he gets another shot. We'll see whether it's in the NFL, the XFL, or another league. I hope he just gets to do what he wants to do. And as he said, he has a resume, so there's no reason why he shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to get now into the nitty-gritty football. As you know, camp starts next week. And if you think about the Raiders and the positions we did last time on Monday, our first show here on Odyssey, we did our position breakdown, the offensive line, which we all know is a key to the Raiders season in 2022. But also important is the defensive backfield. Of course, the Raiders, previous coaching staff, previous regime made significant investments in young players at that position, didn't pan out, including one Mr. Damon Arnett, of course, you remember him. And then even going back before that to the Jack Del Rio years with Garyon Conley out of Ohio, another Ohio State guy. The Raiders have made some tough selections there, but they did acquire some young talent. Coach Josh McDaniels, Mo, has pointed out that the cornerbacks, very young unit, they went out, they got some additional young veterans in Rock Ya-Sin, in former Titan Chris Jones, who's a little bit on the older side. But then you have, again, Trayvon Mullen, nickel corner, Nate Hobbs, who I'm a big fan of, Amik Robertson. Mo, you look at this group heading into camp next week in Henderson. What's your confidence level? If you're going to rate this group on a scale from 0 to 100, meaning 100% confidence, where are they in your scale?
Yeah, I'll give it a 60, only because I think Trayvon Mullen is going to be fine on one side as long as he's healthy. Of course, he had a surgery in the offseason. As long as he's healthy, he's fine on that side. But people are penciling in Rock Ya-Sin as a starter, and I say pump the brakes on that one. His former defensive backs coach did point out some weaknesses that he did have in Indianapolis, which was had to cut down his penalties. He had 9 as a rookie, cut it down to 6 in his second year, and then 3 in his last year. But he also doesn't have a lot of ball production because Rowe pointed out that he has to play the ball a lot better. I believe only 2 interceptions in his career. So I think Anthony Averett, who I think is a sleeper and an X factor in that secondary, I think he has a chance to win that starting job. One of the outlandish takes that I have with the secondary, specifically the cornerbacks, is I think Amik Robertson has a shot to not only make the roster, but have a role moving around that secondary. A lot of people have already flushed him down the toilet and say, oh, they got to waive him, they got to release him. I think he can possibly play well under a new coaching staff, because sometimes you just need a new staff to tap into a player's potential, and then he clicks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I agree with Averett. Listen, he came from that Baltimore defense, and no matter what you think of the Ravens, they have a great reputation. They've had great coaching for a long time. They developed talent there. So I think you're right. I think he's going to surprise people. Let's go back to Ya-Sin, because you're right. I think Raider Nation overall is overly excited about him. I'm not saying they shouldn't be, because if he can reach his potential, the Raiders potentially have a steal there. He's an amazing talent. He's floated between starter and backup with the Colts. Last year in 2020, 8 of 13 games he started, 8 pass breakups, allowing 53.3 completion rate and 3 touchdowns. with an 88.8 passer rating in coverage. One of the things you pointed out in a piece you did on Sportsnaut a few weeks ago was not only the fact that he's got to stay healthy, he's had some issues staying on the field, but also his hand placement. Talk a little bit about that, what you mean and what he needs to do in order to maybe solidify a role as a starter with the Raiders.
Yeah, as I mentioned, he had some issues. Usually, if a cornerback is too handsy, you get a tug at the jersey, the refs are going to throw the laundry on the field. And as I said, his former defensive backs coach mentioned that. If he doesn't get that under control, he's definitely not going to play. That was part of the reason why he moved between a starting role and a backup role in Indianapolis. The other thing is the Raiders need a defensive back who's going to force turnovers. I think that's going to be Trayvon Mullen, who we'll talk about later on, but they need their corners to force some turnovers. And that hasn't been Rock Ya-Sin in his career. He's got to learn how to play the ball. And I think that's where Averett, I'll mention him again, I think that's where he can kind of swoop in and take this job. He led the Ravens in interceptions last year, had 11 pass breakups, which I believe was third on that team. But he could be a late bloomer. And I think and this is not to dump on Rock Ya-Sin, but I think the competition between him and Averett is a lot closer than people think.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And of course, they the Ya-Sin thing with the Ngakoue trade, fans always want a bargain, right? So if we traded this guy's got to be good and he better be a starter, right? But that doesn't always work out that way. We go to Trayvon Mullen. Here's a guy that I think Raider fans and observers, people who cover the league, have been very excited about. That rookie season started off, played 10 starts, had a great season, held a 78.3 passer rating. Second season did fine again, and then last year only 5 appearances because of the injuries. Had some trouble staying on the field. When you look at Trayvon Mullen, clearly this is one of those make or break years for him with the Raiders. I like the kid's talent. He's got to be able to stay on the field. Is that his biggest obstacle? What else does he need to prove in camp to solidify that role?
He's another one that you want to see more turnovers forced on his side of the field. He did lead the Raiders in pass breakups in his first 2 years. So I have no issues about him defending a wide receiver on the outside alone on an island. Because as you know, with Patrick Graham, your cornerbacks are going to have to play in man coverage. So I don't worry about him there. He has the physicality. He has the length. You mentioned his injuries. I think he'll bounce back as long as the foot injury, lower leg injury doesn't linger. Again, I think he'll be fine. But if he's not on the field, it's going to be an issue because the Raiders did not resign Casey Hayward. He's in Atlanta right now. So I think Trayvon Mullen is the best cornerback on the roster. If he's not in the field, that's a big hit to your secondary.
Yeah. So let's talk. And I agree. And I think he will if he can stay healthy. And if that, I mean, we saw what he did, the foot surgery, all that stuff. If he's good, and it might take him a little bit. So I don't think it's not the kind of guy I think in the first 2 weeks of camp, you're going to be like, oh, he's back. I think it's going to take him some time to play into shape. And of course they don't play a ton in the preseason anyway, although I think he'll play a little more than that because they want to see what they have. But you look at the other guys out there too, Mo, in this defensive backfield that are going to have a chance. I talked about Chris Jones coming over from the Titans, a name people know. Also Darius Phillips from the Bengals. He was part of the Bengals Super Bowl team. Talk about those two guys. Those are veterans, I think, good insurance policies. If I'm Dave Ziegler and I'm looking at guys out on the street to come in and compete and push these guys a little bit, they're good, but they also gives them some depth, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives us some depth. I think the person that should worry most about them is probably Amik Robertson, because if one of those guys make the roster, probably means Robertson is out of the door. But I think especially with Phillips, he has played a little on defense, but he's probably going to be one of your core special teamers. He's the guy I would look at as someone who could make the back end of the roster as a challenger for Amik Robertson. But I would look at those two as battling for a back end spot at cornerback.
No doubt about it. And Mo, let's talk too. So we talked about those individual players and where they're at there, and your confidence level at about 60%. I'm probably a little higher than that. I think they're going to respond. I believe that much in the staff that Patrick Graham has put together in Las Vegas. But talk about the scheme, right? So this is something else we need to get into, and we'll get into as we do these position breakdowns, is Patrick Graham's scheme and that kind of hybrid approach to it. What does that mean for this group? What's going to be more difficult for them? How might it be easier versus the previous regime staff?
Well, we all know what Gus Bradley was going to do when he put his defenders out there. They're going to play cover 3, regardless of who they're playing. It's going to, for the most part, it's going to be cover 3. Patrick Graham, you're you're going to see during training camp, if you ask him about his scheme, 4-3-3-4, 4-2-5, 3-3-5, he's going to say multiple. He's going to say yes. It's going to be basically a variation. Depending on what the game plan is for that specific opponent, he's going to tailor it to that opponent. And that's all that means. But I did say that he did make a statement, I believe 1 or 2 summers ago, that he said it's very important in NFL to be able to play in man coverage. And that goes back to my point about Anthony Averett. In Baltimore, Wink Martindale, a lot of blitzing in Baltimore. So your cornerbacks have to be able to be comfortable on an island defending one-on-one in their area. And Anthony Averett proved that he can do that. Marlon Humphrey battled injuries last year. Marcus Peters didn't play the entire year. I believe it was an Achilles or an ACL. He was out. So Anthony Averett had to step up under short notice, and he played up to the occasion. So again, with the scheme that he's in now, he's equipped to play in man. So that's another reason why I think he has a shot to make an impact this year.
I get a theme from you, Mo. We got Anthony the name. Averett. That's right. And so Mostradamus is back. Mo, before we cut out for this segment for the break and then come back and talk about safeties, if any of these guys falter and if the Raiders need to go out looking, there's some names still out there, some names you've mentioned in the past. Who might the Raiders look to in the free agency pool if somebody gets hurt, knock on wood that they don't, or if they get to a point where you got a couple guys just not working out?
Yeah, he got cooked last year, but I think, it doesn't hurt to bring in a veteran like a Janoris Jenkins type of player who gambles. Kind of reminds me of Asante Samuel. But when he's ball hawking out there, he's going to help you force turnovers. And that's the thing with me with the Raiders defense this year. They have to force some turnovers because I believe they were tied for 3rd fewest turnovers forced last year. They need guys out there who are going to track the football. And Rock Ya-Sin, as I mentioned earlier, not his strong suit. Trayvon Mullen, although he does get the pass breakups, not really a ball hawk in his career. Even going back to Clemson, the most interceptions he's had in a season was 3. So they need someone to step up and take the football away and give more possessions to that offense.
Oh, and I almost forgot my guy, Nate Hobbs. Give me your take on Nate Hobbs. I enjoyed watching him play last year. I think he's got that skill set with a better coaching staff now. I expect a lot out of him.
Yeah, had a pretty impressive rookie campaign. He's going to be your slot cornerback. I know there was some buzz. Maybe he moves outside, but I think you keep him at slot where he performed well last year. Don't change it up for him. He performed well in a certain spot. Keep him there unless there's an emergency. As I mentioned, if Trayvon Mullen goes down, then that's when you look to kind of shuffle it up a little bit. But Nate Hobbs has the makings to be one of the best slot corners in the league.
Yeah, just a great pick there by Mike Mayock on John Gruden. Got to give credit where credit is due. All right, we're going to step aside for our final break. When we come back, we move to safeties as we look at the defensive backs for the Raiders heading into camp 2022. You're listening to Mo and Scott here on Silver and Black today, an Odyssey original podcast. We'll be right back.